The pair of U.S. senators she was talking about finally revealed a few details of their long-awaited deficit reduction plan. Their plan aims to cut $4 trillion, with a T, $4 trillion over the next decade. But its three-pronged approach would require, as I say, these major concessions by members of both parties. Some examples. The plan makes serious cuts in discretionary spending, including defense spending. It also raises revenue, largely by eliminating or reducing some popular tax deductions and credits in return for a cut in overall tax rates. Both of those measures would be hard for many Republicans to vote for. But Democrats will have trouble with the plan's call to reform Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. Now, these senators have been negotiating in private, ignoring critics who say they won't get the votes unless they finally end up sharing the details with everyone. Joining us now are two members of the so-called Gang of Six, a bipartisan group of senators trying to negotiate deficit reduction. Senator Saxby Chambliss is a Georgia Republican. Senator Mark Warner is a Virginia Democrat. Gentlemen, thanks for being with us. And first to you, Senator Chambliss. You have been working on this proposal for months. When will you reveal it, and do you really see $4 trillion in savings?
Well, there's no question but what we're working on a plan that's going to achieve $4 trillion in savings over the next 10 years. As to when we're going to be able to complete the details, that's still up in the air, but our group of six has been working very diligently over the last several months, and we're going to continue to work until we get this done and get it done the right way. That's a lot more important than the time frame within which to get it done.
Well, let me press you on that, Senator Warner. House Republican Budget Chairman Paul Ryan has revealed the Republicans' initial deficit reduction proposal. President Obama will reveal one on Wednesday. Don't you both need to unveil it now, within days, to be relevant in this debate?
Well, I think one of the things we saw in last week's debate, if we start from our partisan corners, you end up with the kind of 11th hour brinksmanship. We've been working for months on a serious plan, and we're very close. We want to make sure it's right. And I do think, you know, in the coming short period of time, we need to get this into the debate. And I think you're going to find an awful lot of members in both parties willing to step up and say, if we start from a bipartisan basis, there's a much better chance of it getting done.
Well, let's talk about bipartisanship, because we saw an awful lot of acrimony over the last month over just a tiny sliver of the budget, or the continuing resolution. How in the world, Senator Chambliss, are you going to get Democrats and Republicans to agree for a long-term spending plan in this partisan environment?
Well, that's why it's important that we work together as a bipartisan group to develop a product. If we do start from one side or the other side and hope that we can meet in the middle, my guess is that never gets done. But the fact that we've had 3 Republicans and 3 Democrats in a room discussing in a very serious way the most significant national security interest that the United States is facing today, I think says an awful lot, number one, about the fact that we think we can get it done. And secondly, that this group is committed to make sure that in a bipartisan way we address the issue. That in and of itself would give us a better opportunity than if we started at opposite ends and hope that we could meet in the middle.
Well, Senator Chambliss, do you believe that Senate Republicans will agree to a package that includes any sort of tax changes?
Well, the fact of the matter is that you can't solve this debt problem with just reductions in discretionary spending. You can't solve it just by attacking and reforming entitlements. You've got to look at the revenue side also. And what we're looking at proposing is actually a reduction in corporate rates and personal individual income tax rates, which will put more money in people's pockets. And we're going to do that through the elimination of tax expenditures. Every time we've done that in years past, whether it was under President Reagan or President Bush, we have seen tax revenues increase. And we got to have an increase in revenues to be able to retire this debt. Now, if we don't want to pay the debt back, then we could just not worry about the revenues. But the fact is, we've got a $14 trillion debt staring us in the face, and revenues has to be on the table if we're serious about attacking that debt.
Well, Senator Warner, that's a big concession by Republicans. For Democrats, you've acknowledged that they need to come along and tweak entitlements. Over the weekend, one of the president's senior advisors say this should potentially include Social Security. So what changes to Social Security would be part of your budget proposal?
Well, first thing we need to make clear is neither Saxby or I would propose ever taking money from Social Security to pay down the deficit. What we want to make sure is that there's going to be Social Security 75 years from now, and the idea that we should just punt on this problem because there's still some money left in the trust fund makes no sense to me. We ought to go ahead and make sure that for people in their 20s and 30s, there's going to be Social Security. There's a series of ideas that were laid out in the Simpson-Bowles plan. We can take those ideas, or there are other proposals out there. We need to make sure we guarantee, particularly those folks at the bottom end of the income earnings level, get their Social Security guaranteed as well. I think there's a way that we can find some, again, common ground, but we've got to recognize everything's got to be on the table. And if we've got revenues and we've got entitlements, we know we've got to deal with defense and discretionary spending. I think we've got the makings of a grand bargain. And if we can start with that bipartisan basis, I actually believe we'll get it done and surprise a lot of the pundits.
Can I press you on that? How much would you propose cutting out of the defense budget?
We've got proposals that have outlined within the Deficit Commission. There's a series of numbers that go beyond what's talked about now. I think that's one of the challenges. Paul Ryan's budget's a serious budget, but he leaves revenues off the table. He leaves defense off the table. We think they all need to be part of a grand package that will actually get this job done, that can actually get bipartisan support.